Oh boy. So 2025 will be remembered as a year of reckoning for power, for institutions, and for journalism itself. It was a year that saw a former president return to office, Ghana's first female vice president, sworn in, a sitting chief justice removed major corruption cases, reopened, the city rebound sharply, and national tragedies that tested the country's conscience. But beyond the headlines, 2025 forced harder questions. Did power truly change or simply change hands? Did accountability deepen or merely became louder? Did journalism rise to the moment of struggle to keep pace with a fast-moving state? Now tonight, we reflect not as politicians, but as journalists who watched the year unfold from the front lines. This is Joy News 2025 in review. Now joining us today is Suleiman Abrahama. He is Executive Director of the Media Foundation for West Africa. And as well, Samson Ladiang will join us, host of Newsfile, Evan Smith, our Senior News Editor and Head of Political Desk here at Joy News. And of course, Winston Amwa, Deputy Head of Joy News Political Desk and host of Super Morning Show, Joy FM, and Kojo Yankson, co-host Super Morning Show. Please stay.
Your Excellency, now the oath of the Vice President. I, Professor Nana Jane Opoku Ajiman, having been elected to the office of Vice President of the Republic of Ghana, to the office of Vice President of the Republic of Ghana, do in the name of the Almighty God swear that I will be faithful and true to the Republic of Ghana. So help me God. Congratulations, Madam Vice President. Your Excellency, now the presidential oath.
I, John Dramani Mahama, do in the name of the Almighty God swear that I'll be faithful and true.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr. President.
We're committed to translating your hopes into action and creating opportunities for education, entrepreneurship, employment, and empowerment. Our policies will be tailored to sustain innovation and foster industry that engages today's young minds and equip them with the skills needed for tomorrow's challenges. We envisage an innovative and vibrant 24-hour Ghanaian economy, which will also be anchored in agriculture and agribusiness. This innovative approach would unlock potentials that have long remained dormant, enabling us to harness the energy and creativity of all our people.
Thank you so much for staying with us. Time now to review everything that has happened, particularly newsworthy in 2025. I'd say it's been quite an eventful one. But I'll go to my panelists and at least take how the year has been for them, first of all, before we get into everything that made the news for them. I'll start with you, Suleimana. How's the year been?
Well, I think it's been a mixed bag, a year that I consider a milestone year for me personally, but a year that has also witnessed a number of significant events in my life. So this year, sadly, I lost my dad, which was a very terrible incident or development. But what made it even much more impactful for me was that it happened on the same day when a colleague, a very revered colleague at work, Muhib Said, who has been the lead for our press freedom work in the region, also passed on. So it was the same day. I was returning from the hospital where Muhib was, and we had just been told that, well, unfortunately, he's passed. And on my way home, I get a call that my dad is not well, and in about 30 minutes I get another call. I thought it was just an update to say, okay, this is how it's going, but it was to say, well, your dad is no more. So these were really significant developments for me personally. But as I said, there were also positive developments, both at work and at family level. And I turned 50 this year, so that's
you turned 50.
a great development.
Oh, congratulations.
At least something to smile
Yes,
about.
yes, exactly. Yeah.
Well, we're sorry for the loss.
No, that's
Two
fine.
big losses, sorry. Winston, how's it? Your beard is almost turning gray, though. About 40% of it's turning gray. You still have 60 to save.
Well, I've been trying to understand that, but we'll talk about that another time. Because I don't buy Suleiman's hypothesis. But, well, I say that it's better than it was last year. Because you know that last year I lost my father. But this year's been better. New government, lots of things here and there.
But we came to the funeral this year.
Yeah, we came to the funeral this year. But, the loss was last year. I think that this is a year that has got us talking a lot about different things. But family-wise, personally, there's also a year that has at least shown me that we can achieve that which we desire so much. You can see that you're getting to the end of the tunnel. And so when I say I'm getting to the end of the tunnel, I hope my supervisor is not listening because he's going to send me a message and say, hey, bring your work. But, you can see that you're getting there. We've been trying to gain some qualifications. We've been trying to be of impact, particularly to our profession when it comes to financial reporting and business and economics reporting. So that's what I've been doing in the course of the year. So that's it.
Okay. Well, Kujo, the morning man.
Yeah. For me personally, it's been a year of achievement and aspiration, but also of disappointment and death. A mixed bag. In the work space, we've achieved a lot. Our show has grown from strength to strength. We've had new team members come in, as we've lost some beloved old team members at the same time. But things have really evolved beautifully. Our audience has come along with us. We found new audiences who seem to love what we do every morning. Of course, on the other side of work, of course, the companies that I'm associated with have had a modest year. We are grateful to God. There's been aspiration as well. This has been a year when we've set some very lofty and ambitious targets for ourselves, worked hard towards them. But it's also been a year of disappointment, and death. Disappointment in many fields. Personally, we can't talk about all of them.
Oh, wow.
But and also there's been death.
Right.
We've lost some people very close to us. You've heard of, two of my colleagues talk about losing, beloved family members. I've lost friends, very dear friends. Edward Omaniboama's loss is still one that I'm attempting to process. And it's not just him, but there are many other people who have, been personal pillars in the life that I've been trying to live. Unfortunately, they are no more, and 2025 has taken them away. But we know it's
better.
We know God knows best.
Yeah.
And we pray for a better 2026.
Well, Evans, before you share your personal maybe experience, I'd say that your screaming and your shouting in the newsroom has gotten maybe calmer as compared to 2024.
I think you say
age or life is happening.
No, I think you say that because when you move to the AM show, I don't encounter you as much. So he comes at 5 a.m. by the time I get rolling in. And she also does, 1 p.m. So by the time she's done the meeting where the news is actually planned, that's where a lot of, and Sule knows it, the newsroom has to be rigorous for it to actually produce the results that our audiences expect of. I don't know how Sule does it in this organization, but ours is unforgiving. And I tend to sit back, but she says I scream. But sometimes you have to, yesterday, I believe, one of my friends was playing this video that the newsroom recorded. They were saying, Evans once said.
Oh, yes.
But were you participated in?
Well, I definitely know a lot of things you once said.
But basically, it's, and I tell my politician friends that sometimes we need to bring them to sit in our meetings to see the rigor with which we subject the ideas to, because they think that somehow we sit and plot and have an agenda to do something and to say we're going to go after an NDC or MPP. Or it doesn't work like that at all. No one individual can set an agenda. It's basically come into the newsroom and let the superior argument win the day in terms of the fine ideas that go onto the paper that then we decide to pursue on a daily basis. It's all about the people. If you walk the corridors at Joy, there's something that we have boldly written on our walls which says, we stand with the people and not the powerful. And each day when we go into the meetings to decide what to do, this year it's been the guiding principle. The man who founded this organization, Kwesi Chum, had always drummed that into me. I've been here for what, 22 years?
My goodness.
And basically it's been that's what I grew up on. So when I'm screaming at the, sort of my young colleagues who are coming, it's basically trying to get them to appreciate we are in a very unique, privileged position. They say the media is not that good in telling people what to think, but we are very good at telling people what to think about. So that is a very privileged position indeed. And this year for me has been a very packed news year. That's how I see it, because my entire life is seen through the prism of what happens in the newsroom and the sort of very difficult decisions we have to make. We have the transition, and so the transition brings its own, challenges that you get.
One of the few times I get to disagree with you.
Yeah.
The media...
It begins.
In the past, we said we'd only tell people what to think and not how to think about it. But as the thing about agenda setting improved, it now moved from agenda of issues to agenda of attributes. It's moved to other things. Now the media can actually tell people how to think. Yeah, so you can tell people how to think.
Well, this is you inviting Evans to even shout more into 2026.
This is just an icebreaker.
Okay.
Well, let's put that to his part. My year has been good. I mean,
okay.
I've not had any... have I had tragedies? Of course. I mean, I think that helicopter crash was a big one. Everybody remember where they were when this happened. We had friends who died in the crash. The 24 hours before that, Omani Boma sent me a message that he wanted us to talk about some report that we had done about the military. And I said, yeah, when he comes, we can talk about it. And then, of course, it happened. So that was a very difficult. We're going to be talking about that.
Definitely, we shall.
As I go through the year, when I was preparing for this conversation, every single topic has an outstanding issue that we haven't quite sort of resolved. And it's just struck me that are we doing a good job as journalists? Because there's so many of them that we have left, so many questions left unanswered. And many of them have unfinished ends to them. As in, promises were made, things were said that we needed to follow up on. We don't follow up on them, and then move on to the next story. This is a self-critique, by the way, because I'm just noticing that. I mean, almost every single story is unfinished.
I think that in my introduction, I put that question, whether we've been asking the question or we've also been moving with a fast pace of how the world or Ghana is as well moving. But I cannot wait to hear Samson's take on how the year's been for him. You talked about NDC, NPP. Talking about that, there's been a lot of elections, by-election, reruns. This 2025, very, very eventful elections. Take a look. There's Ablekuma North. There's also been Akwetia as well. You want to stay?
You are beating someone here. There's too much chaos here. Yeah. If the police is stopping the people from passing, what is he doing there? The serious thing here is that they are passing. Oh, man.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to second the motion and doing so present your committee's budget report. Mr. Speaker, I urge the Hamza department.
Both the minority and the majority MPs pushing and pulling each other. There's a scaffold that is breaking on the floor now of Parliament as we speak. Both the majority and the minority MPs now pushing and pulling each other on the center of Parliament, and it's unclear how the marshals will resolve this, but you see the marshals there now standing watching what is happening. And for those who just watching, the minority MPs proceeded from their seats. They moved from their seats to the center of. It's not happening. It's not happening. It's not.
This is chaos. Well, as you can see, I mean, the SMP says they will not allow these tables to be, the tables are literally being pushed and pushed. Where the NSMP is trying to rearrange the tables, the MPP MPs are not allowing this to happen. And these are really terrible scenes as we are seeing in Parliament, with honorable members right at each other's throats, fighting and pushing and pulling tables, saying that this vetting will not happen, that the pushing and pulling is ongoing. This is chaos. This is chaos right here in Parliament.
Meeting, then in the night, 10 p.m., the clerk advertised 10. This morning, my deputy was here. They had a pre-sitting, they agreed to 3. Later in the afternoon, they said 4. And then again, they said that, oh, let's compromise on 1 more. We said, okay, then he made it 5. Just as we finished the fit, we realized that they've paraded several other nominees, dressed, and then they thought that we will boycott. We will not boycott. We will not boycott. We will not boycott. But you will destroy them. I'm saying that we will not boycott.
So please, please, let us not destroy that image, that enviable image that we have carved for ourselves to the rest of the world as a beautiful, functioning democracy.
Thank you for staying with us. So there you go. Quite an eventful Parliament we've had. Eventful by-elections and reruns. But Samson has joined us. Samson, have you had a good year so far?
Yeah, we can be thankful to God. We're alive and our businesses are up and running. I, in particular, had the opportunity to dedicate a bit more time in my firm for pro bono work to help people who cannot afford legal services. So it's been fulfilling. I have also dedicated some time to service of God and country. If you've heard about the famous Govern WhatsApp platform.
Yes.
Yeah. Where we are fashioning out an anti-corruption action plan for the country. Because you see, from where I sit, when I accepted to join that 60-member team to fashion out a plan after the 2014 plan expired in 2024 was because I have come to realize that corruption is our bane. If we're able to reduce corruption and cut it to the barest, this country can be the beautiful country that we all envisage. I'm looking at the big push of the government and asking myself, how much is the government targeting to spend? How much are we losing every year? And when those who give us money say that each year we are losing in excess of $3 billion US, that is not just a figure. That is first-class road network to my village in Gambivugo. Not just to the village, the main road that will ensure that people who are producing in their farmlands can bring the food to the city center. That is hundreds of done dams that we're looking for every year. That's how much we are losing. So I'm happy to be part of that team. And when I went around the country, that for me was like the icing on the cake for me. Even though it was very disturbing, it was revealing as well for me. I had the opportunity to sit down with senior citizens, some of them clergy, some of them educationists, tell us about what they want this country to get.
And this country tour you went to was because of the anti-corruption plan?
Yes, the anti-corruption plan, okay. Because we had done the zero drafts.
Right.
We went to a camp meeting for about a week. Dr. Kojo Asante named them the best of your CSO leaders in this country. We're all pulled together. We brainstormed together with some journalists like Manasi and co. We brainstormed and came together with a zero draft.
Right.
And then we did a validation process. After that, then we went through the country to seek the views of Ghanaians to input into the project.
Sounds like a good 2025.
Yes, I'm so eager to see that plan begin to be implemented.
I see somebody who is even more eager, wanting to respond to your 2025.
Right. I mean, I like the things that Samson and co are doing. But my only challenge is that, many of these things are good. But I think the real problem, and, anybody who studied Ghana's financial architecture will tell you that many of the things we've done in the past, we have done these things in a way that actually addresses the real challenge. Now, one person acknowledged something when he spoke to members of the Public Accounts Committee. There's a systemic problem that they take advantage of consistently. That systemic problem, nobody is prepared to discuss. And over again, we've talked about anti-corruption plans without addressing this. So for instance, I'll give a typical example. How in God's name do you set up a gift me system, which says, it must run on, everybody must go through the system. And over the period, we consistently come to Public Accounts Committee with irregularities associated with gift meals. In fact, our COVID expenditure, part of our problem when we talk about irregularities, and one of the things we do all the time is to say, we lost this amount. No. A lot of the times, what we say we lost are irregularities. And this is the point. How can somebody tell you that because of connectivity, I didn't use gift meals? We allow it to go. And it says, I don't have training in this. I didn't use it. We allow it to go. Look, and this is something that people have researched into over the period. I have an article that was written by members of parliament. Suhini, Hassan Suhini was part of that. And they will tell you that part of the problem that we have with accountability and by extension corruption in this country is that, go and look at our Public Financial Management Act. It says at the time you present any financial report, you must indicate the recommendations by the Public Accounts Committee that you have actually incorporated in your work. How many entities would do that? They wouldn't do that. The committee itself, because most of the time, and this is the reason in 2017, instead of Klucha Veggie, going to the Pan-African Parliament or so, no, ECOWAS Parliament, had to stay and become chairman because he was the only chartered accountant in the opposition at the time. So the assurance I'll give you is
that what I'm going to do is I'm going to note this particular
point. Someone wants to give me assurance.
I want to give you
okay, of course you can deliver assurance.
No, let's give you assurance.
We all need the assurance.
I must say, though, that whilst we're doing our part of the job and we'll hand it over to the state to implement, we know that often the implementation is the problem.
Good.
But we are just hoping that the government means well. In the next 3 years that they have, they will implement the policy, the program to the letter. If they did, we'll be very happy. Now, let me give you an idea. So, the grand corruption. In the last 5 years, we have, through the Auditor General's report only, we have lost, people have stolen and have misused in excess of almost 80 billion Ghana cedis. Okay, almost 80 billion. That's a lot of money that can do something for us. We need to catch them. Some of the laws you need are unexplained wealth orders because the grand corruption happening with the people who have access, you need to be able to catch them to explain the source of their wealth. Where the Constitution has failed. The Constitution says if you make your declaration and subsequently we find out that you have acquired something which you cannot explain by your income, which is not attributable to a gift, to a loan, or to an inheritance, then that becomes something that is illegally acquired. Unfortunately, it doesn't say what we should do thereafter. So we say...
What I'm going to do, and this is a problem, so what I'm going to do is I will put this at the hip of the paper, and then I'm going to give you some time to...
You cannot have an Internal Audit Agency Act that says that internal auditors sent by the Internal Audit Agency must have their reports signed by the very CEOs that they are auditing before it's sent. What that actually does is that it prevents the people from doing their job. So this is part of the problem we talk about. We pass laws and we find a nice way to undo everything.
But this is Samson here, and he's giving assurances.
I'm saying we passed that law.
What I'm talking to you about, we don't have. If we have it, it's preventative.
No, but I'm saying
because you would be called upon to account to explain your source of wealth.
No, but that point
to explain how you got that mansion or that car, or how you got money to throw that party.
That is
so you be careful.
No, but that is if.
Yes.
If. But I'm saying if you pass a law that says Kojo Yangsing is the CEO, if I have to send anything to the Internal Audit Agency, my job as an internal auditor is subject to Kojo Yangsing saying this is good or bad. This can be passed on. If Kojo Yangsing says you cannot pass this on, you can't pass it on. What it does is that I can always be made to change to suit Kojo Yangsing. That is not how you deal. Because the essence of an actor in a forum is...
But you're talking about something different.
No.
Okay.
That's the essence of corruption.
All right. So we'll take it from the top. We're going to take it from top, 2025. Of course. When something is done, he says is an action that you're putting together. You can get the opportunity to recommend, would you not? That won't it allow? But I'm going to take it from top. 2025 really delivered a rare political moment. It brought back a former president. And of course, Ghana's first vice president here in this country. And beyond that, one would have thought that it will situate Parliament in a way that will be more assertive. But just today, when Parliament looks quite assertive, then we see some chaos as well. The bringing back of a former president, Sulemana, would you say that it was a real introduction of the idea of the reset that they promised?
Well, MFI, I think 2025 was certainly a momentous year for our country. I think in terms of governance, we had, to be frank with you, gotten to a point where the country was on the brink. And many say that one wonders what would have happened if the MPP had won the last elections. And I think certainly that it wasn't going to be good for our democracy because we had gotten to a point where almost everything was down. The economy was down, confidence in people had gotten down, expectations, the situation had become so hard for many people, in terms of the trust for our governance system was down. So we were at a point where many were even contemplating what could happen. You know, would we go down the path of other countries if these things were to continue? And indeed, even before then, we had engagements with some government entities, you know, about whether or not there could be possibilities of a coup d'etat in this country. And if you recall, at some point when the CD was so much misbehaving, the president himself at the time had to make a public appeal to our military, not to think about intervening. And President Mahama, former President Mahama, then candidate Mahama, had to make the same appeal. So I would say that at least in the interest of stability, continuity of our Fourth Republic and all of that, what happened by way of the 2024 elections perhaps got us at least to be stable as a country. And the results, I think, spoke for itself in terms of the outcome. For the first time, we have one party controlling 2/3 of parliament. We have, you know, a leader who won so overwhelmingly. So in terms of the endorsement, public support, and then all of that, I think President Mahama has it all. And as you rightly said, for the first time, we have a female vice president, and that means something in terms of the women empowerment, you know, the gender dynamics of our governance and all of that. That certainly is great. Of course, in terms of resetting, a lot had to happen. Whether we called it resetting or otherwise, a lot had to change based on what was happening. The President Akufo-Addo government had gotten to a point where it was basically we wouldn't listen to anyone. We would do whatever we want, even as the country was sinking. It was almost a case of we are doing what we want, to hell with you. So what happened, whether we call it reset or not, that is what it is. Coincidentally, the NDC's manifesto, you know, was a title, Resetting Ghana,
right.
Agenda for Jobs, you know, and all of that. And so far, I think, I would say that it's not been bad. We've seen some positive developments. But for me, I think that the signals to take us to where we should be, we are yet to see that. As Samson and Winston were talking about the issues about corruption and the plans and the laws and so on, I think three things, you know. And for me, the number one thing is values as a country. Something, I think you call it ethics. You know, that's why you are introducing ethics as part of this framework that is being developed. And then, of course, systems. And the third, for me, would be the laws. If the values are not there, the systems are not there, we can have 10,000 laws. It won't work. Because at the end of the day, the person going to make the arrest is somehow implicated or conflicted because they themselves have to also find a way out. They want to, you know, mount the prosecution. It's dealing with the same system. The judge sitting there, and judges are human beings. Let's be honest with ourselves. They are citizens as we are, they are human beings as we are, they are paid, you know, they must survive and all of that. They are not angels. And the judges work within the same system. We got to a point in this country where people were saying, we can no longer even trust the judiciary. To the point where even the Supreme Court, the highest court of our land, would make decisions and people would begin to say, oh, okay, we did expect this, we expected that, and so on and so forth. So until when we get to a point where there is so much state attention on values, what kind of values would take us to where we have to be? Because otherwise, everybody wants to survive. Everyone thinks that it's right to cut corners to survive. The minister thinks it is okay to award inflated contracts and get kickbacks. The CEO thinks, well, I am here to make some money. And so even in terms of appointments, there is a discussion about who got the best ministry and who didn't get the best ministry.
Which, by the way, at the end of the conversation, yes, I'll be asking who's performing so far.
This person was appointed to this institution and they gave him a good position. What makes it good? Because, okay, that place, there are opportunities to make a lot of money.
I'll take a moment.
So until we get to the point where we bring in values, systems, and the laws to work together, I think that we'll have a long way to go.
Evans.
Yeah.
And so you've as well seen many regimes as well. You've reported, you've done journalism. You were just telling me you've been here 22 years. Is it not the case that in the first year of every new government, it looks all nice, looks very rosy, because then the country was delivered back into the hands of a former president? Isn't it that we're just delivering it back to same cohort, same type of people with same political instance. Is it not the case?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Every government, and especially when we have changed power, will have the proverbial holiday. What Mahama got in trouble for saying, he needed a honeymoon period. You have a honeymoon period. So every government has had that. So it could last for a whole year, or it could last for a few months, depending on the existing circumstances. What was different this time, though, with this current government was, if you track back to 2023, 2024, on the back of the DDEP, the domestic debt exchange, on the back of the restructuring that we did with our Eurobonds, etc., there was a sense that 2025, 26, 27, 28 was going to be a very, very difficult year for whoever won the elections, because we deferred a lot of the pain down the line. That was the essence of the restructuring. We restructured a lot of the debt and spread it over the next few years so we can survive in the interim and get some breathing space. And so we shifted a lot of the burden down the line. And so whoever won the elections, I remember at the time we did a lot of shows around the deferred pain and how whoever won the elections was going to really struggle to come to terms with the reality of recovering. And there were projections that it was going to take us at least a decade to sort of recover from the challenges that the previous government had cost us. And it was just yesterday, just by the way, I was listening to Ken Ofori-Atta swear that we're not going to go to the IMF. We're not going to the IMF, and that we are proud people. I mean, but that sort of set the stage for 2025. I thought was going to be a very difficult year for anybody who won it. The inflation at the time, last year ending, was 23%. So coming to 2025, it was a question of whoever won, how were they able to manage the economy to begin to fix what had been broken. And then we come into 2025 with the sort of victory that John Mahama got. And because this is a news review, we sort of need to pause for a second. The 2024 elections produced a series of firsts. I think it's the elections that broke almost all records. The first time a former president who had lost power stood for re-election and won, never happened before. First time an election delivered not only a supermajority, I call it ultra supermajority, because in the wake of the actual election outcome, they won several, they won in the by-elections in the interim. Those who the independents are also on their side. So it's really huge supermajority, 2/3. First time it's happened. The first time, MPP lost seats in places that they've never lost seats in. I mean, elections in the past always threw up, but the sheer number of seats that the NDC could only dream about like 15 years ago, NDC managed to win them. If you go to Ashanti region, there were a few seats there that they won that everybody was shocked about. If you go to Dominican, was another one that everybody was shocked about. We were all surprised when it was a tsunami of biblical proportions. I mean, when it was, the chips were down, Winston and I were in the studio, and the day I saw that was a problem, the minute I saw there was a problem, was when our good friend, Andy Japa Mesa, lost. I mean, like, Andy Japa Mesa. I mean, fine gentleman. You didn't think that even if there's a tsunami, some people will be preserved. For him, I never saw it coming. I mean, so that on the back of everything that's happened, and then first female vice president.
Of course.
You know, so this is a host of firsts. So the MPP lost, but the NDC came into power. The expectations were very high. Have they delivered is the key question, and I'm pretty sure we can debate that. But it is fundamental for me to that point. What were the expectations? But also, I mean, the reverse of that was the bar was been set so low from the Ken Ofori-Atta and Akufo-Addo's. By the way, the evidence shows that the worst president in the Fourth Republic, in my books, that we didn't expect much, really, compared to, say, 2016 when Nando was coming in. There was a lot of expectations, huge. But JM, yes, I mean, to whom much is given, much is expected. You can say that. But we expected somehow, I did expect that they could just simply, because we're an IMF program, they didn't have to do much, just keep executing the program, right? But then the question about the CD's appreciation was for me the thing that sort of held everything together. Because you see, it has a ripple effect. If you keep the CD stable, and in this case, it wasn't even stable, it was sort of appreciated significantly against all the trading currencies. At the time, it was appreciated against the dollar, against the euros, against the pounds. And then the ripple effect, obviously, was inflation then begins to trend down quite significantly. We are single digit now because it affects prices, because everything else is imported. Imported inflation is our biggest problem. They keep it down. Exchange rate is strong. You have inflation that is trending downwards, single digit. Transport fares were reduced by 15%, I believe. I mean, it rarely happens. When fuel prices begin to go down, it begins to affect food prices on the market. That obviously reflects in inflation. People then begin to feel it in your pockets. The result of that was that people were not tolerant of any MPP criticism. If you notice, the mood in the country, even when they were right in raising some red flags, people said, what are you talking about? You have no moral authority to even criticize.
I thought that take expression in Sami Jemfi's response to the losses that the IMF said the gold board had actually reported.
I mean, because when you have endured a DDEP, when pensioners had lost their money, haircuts have been given, when we're told no haircuts, people were just very upset, very angry. I don't know if that mood has changed. And you've heard people say, well, NDC folks say they haven't had a major scandal yet.
I hear that too.
That could sort of sway our mood towards the other end. But Ghanaians are not tolerant anymore of a government that begins to take them for granted. And you hope that the NDC have learned the lessons.
Hold on to the lessons, because then maybe, I mean, it will be coming into the conclusion part. Because I'm coming to you. Winston, when I come to you, I'm concerned about the seats that Evans mentioned, that in some areas, of course, you see that this is a whole NPP stronghold, and yet the NDC will say, many say that those seats are for rent. They are not quite a low deal. They're not permanent. And so you're just enjoying what the previous government has suffered. And so those seats are not permanent. And why, when we see by-elections and reruns, Evans has just described the wins as ultra majority, like it's super, super, super majority. Why will the NPP NDC go on a tussle over reruns and by-elections? When I come to you, you put that together for me. But Kojo, you realize that even as the NDC or Ghana delivered a very rare moment, it was all beautiful. That swearing in was quite ceremonial. I saw you and MFIU, you were here in the studio. It was just beautiful to see. Then weeks after that, when we have a by-election, is marred with a lot of violence. Then I sit back and ask myself that, why does it look like each time our democracy would have to be tested, it goes really straight to the spine of the country? We sit down and go like, wow, just a by-election, just a rerun, and then we're recording such huge violence. What do you think is really the problem? Is it that our democracy looks like it's maturing, is a caricature of maturity, but it's not matured?
MFR, there's a certain mirage that sits over our politics in Ghana. And I think that the day Ghanaians see through that mirage, you will suddenly see a very enlightened electorate that makes decisions differently. What am I talking about? I think that we believe that elections are a very high stakes activity in Ghana. Make or break, win or lose. Yeah. Because whomever takes the trophy, whomever wins the election, wins everything. But it's a mirage. Because since the dawn of the Fourth Republic, no election has changed Ghana. No party has come into government and transformed the country.
It's not a debate.
Your life doesn't change based on who wins the election. Nothing fundamental about who you are, what you aspire for, what you are capable of, changes because of who wins the election. But we are yet to see that.
But there's some evidence to support what he's saying.
Yeah.
Because if you look at just statistically, so we had Kufuor. So let's go to 2020 was when we changed government for the first time. At the time, there was high expectations. Kufuor then did quite well. It took us to HIPIC, and then sort of reversed a lot of the debt, and we sort of went back to the international market. But if you go to 2010, when we began to produce commercial oil, to 2012, every government since then had sort of, it's been a race to the bottom. So in 2015, we had gone to the IMF because people forget at the time, the cedi had collapsed against the currency. So they went for policy credibility, if you remember. In 2015, we did the Senchi thing, and then, that. And then at the back of that, and one of the things that we noticed, just analyzing it, was each time we had gone to the IMF in an election year, the incumbent government that went to the IMF loses the election and lost elections significantly. So in 2016, the NDC lost elections. And you think that the party that took over will do better because they've learned a lesson. 2016's margin of defeat was so significant. The margin of victory was huge for Akufo-Addo. What happened? They did worse than the government before them. We thought then was the worst rock bottom we've hit. But 2020, 2023, 2022, 2024 beats that. I mean, Akufo-Addo managed to somehow outdo the chaos and the rock bottom of 2016. So it backs your point. And then, of course, we now delivered another one now. The question is whether they would reverse.
But Kajol, then how does that then introduce violence each time there's an election?
History tells us that elections don't change our lives.
I'm just making a point, just to support the point that it hasn't changed. It sort of get worse, at least over the last 16 years.
But we think they do, right? That's the mirage. We think the elections change our lives. They don't. The only thing that changes is who has access to stealing. That's what changes, right? The people who rob us change. That's it, right? So, in essence, because we think everything rides on the election, while nothing actually rides on it, we are able to muster emotion to the level of violence, believing that we have to affect the outcome of the election by hook or crook, not realizing that if we stay at home and let things take their course, our lives will remain pretty much the same. So with every by-election, we decide that everything rides on it, because this is what will tell us what the nation thinks of us. This is what will tell us whether the choice we made in the election recently was the right one or the wrong one. This is what will validate what we've just come through. So let's throw everything at it. These by-elections were inconsequential. It would have made no difference who won or lost. We would still have had a mega majority or whatever you want to call them. We would still have had a paltry minority or whatever you want to call them. Nothing would have changed fundamentally from the results of these two by-elections. But in our minds, everything rides on it.
Sorry, but there's some very good justification for the point you are making, however controversial it is. But we also have to acknowledge, he's saying what he's saying, and there's every good reason for it because of the bad leadership we have had over the period. And we have seen our peers, the countries that we gain independence with, we can only always reference them to show how badly we have managed ourselves, okay? So we will reference Malaysia and the rest of them, and we are nowhere close.
I thought that was quite far, Malaysia.
Correct.
Yeah.
So for that reason, you are correct. When I see all the broken roads and the schools under trees that we are never, ending, that's a good point you raise. But elections are important. Because look, we went broke as a country, completely broke. We're getting to a point like some other country where fuel had to be rationed for essential workers, right? You have an election that has somewhat changed that circumstance. We've had the cedi at least managed to be stable for a while. We don't know if that stability is organic. We can debate that. But look at how things were being run. Look at the nature of inflation.
If you don't mind,
okay? The way inflation was running up.
Is it on the CPO?
To some extent, elections do matter. And I believe that we have leaders who think beyond, the thievery and what they can get personally. So we have John Mahama, and we're thinking about a legacy term, and he clearly knows the burden of the expectations on him. The constitutional changes that are expected.
Could you see the point he's advancing?
They will change the architecture of this country forever.
If I had continued, I would have come to that point. Anyway.
It's fine.
Because it is true.
Okay.
Right? And I would have come to that. I was starting from this basis because I needed to remove the mirage. Before I then go and talk about the real differences between the government we just experienced and the one we are experiencing now. Because there are differences. There are differences. They may not be life-changing, but there are differences, and they are important. All right? First of all, it would not have been difficult for anyone to have been better than the last government we just had. Not have been difficult. Because I agree, that is the worst president we've had in the Fourth Republic. Someone who dipped his hands into people's nest eggs, people's savings, people's investments, people's pensions to fund his government. That's the lowest of the low. It doesn't get worse than that. Someone who stood on platforms and defended Galamsey, said, oh, they are not doing it as we speak. So let them be.
So it brings the point back to the fact that...
Is it difficult to do better than that?
Which will mean that we've got to wear the mirage back then.
No, the mirage exists. It's always there.
Okay.
And it comes out during elections, right? I was trying to answer your question about why there's always violence. But there are differences between the performance of governments. There are differences. The point is that it is not difficult to follow a government as bad as the one we just had. It's not difficult. In fact, that's the reason why I didn't think John Mahama needed a honeymoon at all. He'd been president before. He'd done it for 4 years. He wasn't new to the job. He had 8 years to lay his plans of how to come and do better. So for me, his accountability should have begun from day one. No honeymoon. But he came along and actually fulfilled some of the promises he made. That makes a pleasant change.
He actually was greeted with a crisis, with the energy crisis that it made.
From day one.
Yeah.
From day one, the lights were going to go off.
Yeah.
He fixed it. Good for him. The lights have stayed on all year, right?
Yeah.
Congratulations to him for that. And you see, these things ought to be normal. These ought not be the things that we praise.
Low-hanging fruit.
Right?
Right.
But after what we've just been through, it becomes like superhuman achievements.
Yeah. Right then.
Right? So let me wrap up with this.
Yeah.
For me, John Mahama's first year started with that, all the pomp and promise of that inauguration ceremony, because we had been traumatized. And anything would have been better than what we had been through. So we were excited. We gave him all the support because we expected a lot from him. But it also meant that we have been, in my view, a little bit lax in criticizing President Mahama, because we don't want to have buyer's remorse. We don't want to look back at the choice we made overwhelmingly in the 2024 election and say, oh, we made a bad choice.
Would you be mindful of where you're coming from?
Sorry?
Would you be mindful of the governance that you were coming from?
Well, yes.
Whilst you're criticizing.
Yeah, but it still doesn't change the fact that we must hold up leaders to a standard.
That's right.
And we shouldn't say that, oh, as long as he got 10 out of 100 and the last guy got 2 out of 100, we're happy.
Okay. Winston, in that case, we can agree that, well, we've got to compare today's governance to yesterday's governance, and it looks like John Mahama is delivering on some of the things, deliverables. Why would we go for a by-election and then an NPP party who is already struggling in Parliament will still be engaged and wanting to get a seat? And in fact, Pandai's seat is just in vision for me now.
Okay.
Which...
I will get to the Pandai bit, but let me just make this point. I'm sure if all of us sat here in 2017, we would make similar comments. Because then in 2017, we'd say, oh, no, and people would say, oh, but 2017, things were going well. Let me just make this point, okay? And I've been having this conversation with Professor Bokwe. He doesn't mind being quoted. Look, we're under an IMF program. Evans, you make the point that every government that goes into an IMF program, you and I did this, in its second term, loses the election. But the moment another government takes over, the first year or two is smooth for that government. Now, one of the things we don't talk about most, and I would single out Kojo Oponkron for one thing he said. He says, I mean, I was listening to him on Top Story the last time. When they brought this gold for reserve, he said, look, the IMF doesn't want us to do this. So first of all, before we start everything, let me give you this and say, they don't want us to do this. But let me make the other point that I want to make. Today's economic environment favors us. Mm-hmm. It's one of the things we're not talking about most. And one of the things we must realize is that in the global architecture, when it favors you...
You mean commodity prices? Let's be more...
I am getting there. I'm getting there. Not just commodity price. Yeah, but the commodity price is also because of who is in charge of the United States of America. It's something we don't talk about the most. People don't trust the policies of Donald Trump. And because the world don't trust what Donald Trump will do next, the world has found solace in gold, which we produce. It works for us. But you see, we're missing a point. Because the commodity prices are favorable, in the past when we engaged in future trading with cocoa, and mind you, cocoa board in the past was not governed well. I mean, let me not mince words. But we had actually engaged in future trading, and so we're supposed to be selling at 2,000, 3,000. Even when it went to 7,000, 8,000. Today, the price of cocoa is good. And our research team did the analysis and found that if you look at the price of cocoa, almost a 50 to 70% increase. They found that, look, let me just put it this way. The price of cocoa was better in this year than it was previously. What does that mean? What that simply means is that you get enough foreign exchange. The very reason we went under an IMF program was because we needed foreign exchange. But that's also because of Ken Ofori-Attah's intransigence. And that's not mince words. I have always insisted that, look, the last thing you want to do, I'm sorry to all my, what's the right term I want to use? Investment bankers. But the last person you want to put in charge of your economy is an investment banker. He makes no mistake. Because investment bankers, if I take your money and I trade and I make a loss, I'll share. I pass it on to you. I walk away. So the last thing that should have happened was to have kept Ken Ofori-Attah for all the 8 years. It was a bad decision of Akufo-Addo.
The best years would have been how many?
It was a bad decision of Akufo-Addo. And when his party came up and said he should sack him in 2022, he should have done that. But the point I'm making is that, look, today, a lot of things are working for us. It's the reason I say the conversation today should be, as we buy time, what do we do? Because Evans, Samson, Sulemana, Kojo, if I give you a lot of dollars, you pump into this economy, you will get good results. It was that thing that Ken Ofori-Attah, the NPP, did in the first term of its governance, when because the markets were favorable, at the beginning of every year, Samson, you remember this, Evans, you remember, we indicated how much we're going to borrow from the Eurobond, true or false? True or false? Yep. It was because the market was good. Today we're shut out of that market, but the good news is that we have gold and cocoa, and these prices, these commodities are doing well. And so the Bank of Ghana will be compelled by the IMF to say, indicate what you're going to put in. Joy Research indicated how our debt had increased by 70 billion. How did that increase by 70 billion?
On account of mainly the exchange rate.
On account of the exchange rate. The point I'm making is that, look, today it works. What is it that we do to sustain this? The good news for Ghana is that Donald Trump is still president for the next 3 years. Mm-hmm. His policies, you don't know tomorrow. Mm-hmm. Once he makes the next decision, a bit ad hoc decision, which affects America, the world will go into cocoa. And the world now, there's a lot of research backing gold-backed currency.
And just to circle back to the questions about reviewing this year, mm-hmm. It comes to the question of whether or not JM, somebody who's lost an election before, at the time when he lost, nobody had lost an election by that margin. Has he learned the lessons? Because again, when he took over, in his early year,
don't worry,
it was smooth. I'm just coming to a question, and I guess we can weigh in on that, which is, has he learned the lessons of his last term before this one to build the buffers with the current positive world economic climate ahead of shocks that may or may not come down the line. I think for me,
and this is also because and also Evans, Winston, I also hear you say that Oforiatta, as though he was quite perfect for a period, right? He was quite okay for a period.
Don't worry, when I answer Evans' question, you will understand. I have just told you that the good news we have is that Donald Trump is still president. And if Donald Trump is still president, the world economic architecture is still unstable. Nobody knows the next decision he will take.
Yeah, but I just want to localize it. I'm asking the question.
So I'm going to answer that question. And I say that
is this current government...
If you're John Mahama, listen, if you're John Mahama...
doing the right things for what may happen down the line.
Currently...
If you look at this year...
Not much has been done about what could happen. And I'll explain. Look, we have actually repeated the very things we've been doing in this country. Why? When we decided to go into Nkoko and Kete, for instance, when we decided to deal with our poultry exports, what we did was actually to repeat basically the same model. Get farmers, then you give anchor farmers this. But I make the point that if you are engaged in farming, if a man can produce 2 million birds, why isn't given a chance to produce 2 million birds? Why are you giving 50,000 birds? It doesn't make sense. What we are doing is that we are not focusing on the very things. Just recently, we did a multimedia Greater Accra Poultry Farmers Association partnership to sell eggs, because we talked about an egg glut. We talked about an egg glut, which was simply because market queens had created a problem for all of us. I am saying that, look, as much as what we are faced with, and the Gold Board has done a good job, because the moment you get into the Gold Board and you say, they're able to deal with the smuggling. They've not solved all the problem. They haven't. But they've dealt with a bit of the smuggling that was happening in the past, where people smuggled gold out of this country. And so we had conversations about how we had exported more gold to a particular country than we had officially declared we had exported in this country. The point is that we are not engaged in import substitution, the very thing that drives our inflation. In fact, if you watch critically, a lot of the things that have driven down our inflation is the things we import. Because, why? The market queens go and buy eggs at 30, 40 cedis and go and sell at 70 cedis. Years ago, we're buying the same thing. They just won't reduce it. Seasonal products will go up. We're happy the rains have been with us. So I say that, look, this is a good year. Take it, work towards the next year, and see how you go about it.
Okay.
Having said that also, I would not take away the fact that you have a finance minister who could have paid more, but decided not to pay. Who could have borrowed more, but decided not to borrow. But also, because of the circumstances you find yourself in. Unfortunately, in the past, others would have gone ahead and gone to borrow. So you give him the credit. But my basic principle is that everybody who is pretending the country, if there's any achievement, give it to him. So that if there's any problem, you hold him accountable. So you get it today, take the advantage. Tomorrow, if things are bad, then we'll hold you accountable. But let me get to the by-election question that you asked. I don't know why.
It may take a detour and come back.
In 2 minutes.
I promise you.
In 2 minutes. In 2 minutes. Let me just do this in 2 minutes. Because if I don't do it in 2 minutes and you go and come back, it will take a longer period.
I will.
Let me just do it before you go.
No, I promise. It sits somewhere better. That's why.
Let me finish.
It's elections and it sits somewhere better. I'll bring you back. I will bring you back.
Much time. Let me just.
I will bring you back. I'll bring you back.
Okay.
Let's go. Samson, you think that you understand the Constitution a lot more until an issue happens and then we have to apply the laws in the Constitution. Then you realize that, there could be a problem. I've heard you talk about the Constitution review that's also chaired by Professor Prempe. But the major shake-up in the judiciary, the removal of the Chief Justice.
Yeah, it's a very important, history-making point we got to, but I would be remiss if I didn't make a comment on the first subject of the comeback of John Mahama. And you see, once again, if good governance means economic development, if good governance means that I can buy my K without thinking that the next day the price will increase from 2 cedis to 3 to 4 to the next, then well and good. To use the expression Akufo-Addo is the worst that Ghana has seen, will be accommodated because of where the economy was plunged to. But I think we should not make the mistake of thinking that everything about his government was wrong and that were not things that they got right. And that even this government today is riding on the back of some of the good things they have been able to build. You may think, for example, that what they did with the digital economy is not something huge to talk about. But that would be completely wrong, because that's where the world is going to. Our cybersecurity rankings in 2017 were ranked by the International Telecommunications Union, were ranked 32%. By 2024, we had been ranked 99%. We were ranked to have done well tier 1, as well as Singapore, as well as the US and other countries that we all love to visit.
But Thompson, not to catch you, but it's as though we want to clap for what you are expected to do. For example, if you score 40 out of 100, we acknowledge that you got some score 40, but you failed. So
you don't have to go far. You just have to pick perhaps the last 3 or 4 of Samson's stakes. Okay. And you will see that I was very critical of the government for all the failures, particularly on the economic front. But I also want us to admit that it is easy for us to keep repeating that Akufo-Addo was the worst. But was he really? If you do not factor in the economy, and I know you cannot make the argument and taking out the economy, right? But there were several sectors that they did very well, markedly well. I just gave one example of that, which is very important for any nation in today's, global, economics. Yes, the Chief Justice's removal.
Hang on. Maybe you're not in this country, but I'm happy to bring you a few things that had happened, especially under the judiciary.
All right.
Maybe you never heard the removed Chief Justice ever address us before, but here, watch.
If these current proceedings are being carefully staged to result in my removal as Chief Justice, even if there's no lawful justification, all I have stated shows that any such action would have been done on the basis of lies and violations of law and due process. As a career judge who has served under 4 presidents, from High Court through Court of Appeal and Supreme Court, I could never have imagined such irregularities possible if I had not personally encountered them. I am also a mother, and I am a grandmother who must hope for better than this for her country, its rule of law and its democracy. On my part, I chose to respect His Excellency the President's warrant of suspension, even though it was clear to me that it was not supported by a prima facie determination that is required by the Constitution and decisions of the Supreme Court. I have chosen to honor the process set in place to hear the petitions, but I do not choose to hide from the nation that perversion of law, rules, and due process, as we all know them, are driving the proceedings, and this renders the proceedings unconstitutional. I choose to trust that such darkness will not totally engulf this nation.
There has been considerable interest in our work, shown through comments and opinions by Ghanaians and international observers as well. However, the committee restrained itself all along from reacting, even when blatant false statements were made about members of the committee and our work. To the committee, our mandate and remit is set out under Article 146, clauses 7 and 8 of the Constitution. It's clear, and it is to inquire into the petitions in camera. Here, the person against whom the petitions have been brought in her defense by herself or by her lawyer or other expert of her choice, and then make a recommendation to you, Mr. President. After critical and dispassionate examination and assessment of all the evidence, including the expert evidence, against the provisions of the Constitution and the relevant laws, we have, without fear or favor, arrived at a recommendation on the first petition. The recommendation is contained in the envelope which I now give to you.
Fine. We're back in class. We're back in class. So, Samson, I thought that for Article 146 really came to the fore. I can count the number of times you, Samson, we have referenced it on Newsfile and even on the law. I can also count the number of times that particular provision in the Constitution showed up on Super Morning Show. It was quite surreal. Nobody thought that something like that could happen. The government said that it was quite compelling. The petitions were quite compelling, and so this is why we had to get to where we are. The processes so far, that Article 146, right, and the removal, the judiciary in it. So let me take your comment on it before I go around the table.
So as I mentioned earlier, yes, the economy is important, but there are a lot of sectors or factors that contribute to building the economy that you want. So when I reference what the previous regime was able to do with our cybersecurity regime, I am looking at, a digital economic confidence. When you have a strong cybersecurity, it builds trust in your digital systems. So we have economy that is now driven by mobile money, e-payment, national ID, e-governance. And this trust is crucial for economic growth and attracting foreign investment. It is the same way that if the judiciary is not doing well, or the perception of the judiciary is as bad as it got to, it affects your economy. So when the head of the judiciary, one that is being carved out by the Constitution to be independent, is attacked, quote unquote, in the manner that we have had to experience.
She was attacked?
I said when the institution is attacked, and I said quote unquote, I used that, right. In the manner that we experience, it has a certain effect on the economy. So this is equally important. Now, as someone who has myself, done a case successfully on Article 146 to remove the occupier of a constitutional, an independent constitutional body, I appreciate what is going on, what went on. As someone who had the opportunity to also lead Kokubako to the Supreme Court to challenge the removal of someone else.
So you removed one and you're challenging the removal?
Yes, to challenge the removal of someone else and discovered the outcome and the posture of the court to it. I appreciate what has happened. Now, here's my point. This Chief Justice is the first, the former Chief Justice, is the first to have interfaced with the public openly as a Chief Justice to lay out her vision and her dream for the judiciary of this country, not the Supreme Court, the judiciary, as an arm of government. Then she laid out, she rolled out dozens of rules to improve the judicial system. She brought out what we call the directions for various things that to be done, including, the injunction, how to deal with, injunction applications when there's a dead body in place, like it happened in Lumber's situation. And what was she riding on? She had a vision. It was the leading justice. And in the leading justice, she was looking for an efficient judiciary, a judiciary that runs with speed and is efficient at delivering justice to people. So she rolled out all of these things that had to be done. And then she gets caught by a conduct. Yes, the petitions, particularly that of Daniel Ofori, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes, Daniel Ofori. Yes.
Represented by Thaddeus.
Had how many, grounds over 12 or 20 plus, correct?
20.
Grounds, yes, about 22 of them.
Yeah.
Grounds. And there are about 2 grounds that attract our attention for major discussion. How money she should not have used, she used. How, as it were, the state had to pay for someone, her relation, for her vacation travel that the state should not have paid. But guess what? She was dealing with a policy, which policy her predecessors had also used, right?
Yeah.
Her predecessors didn't get to suffer this fate, but she, unfortunately, had to suffer it. In fact, the people who were called to testify, she called to testify for her. On her side, she called about a dozen, and the other side too called about a dozen people to testify for them, right? If I remember correctly, or together, that was the number. What happened?
She called about 12.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. They included former chief justices, and they included people who had sat on the Supreme Court. They endorsed the policy that was attacked as something that was appropriate that they were using, and she was not at fault. Her only, misfortune was that the Constitution and its provisions override that policy, and that policy had not received executive approval because the conditions, the terms and conditions of service of a chief justice, like other persons within the realm of that Article 71 office holders, are determined by the president, right? Through the work that is done and presented to Parliament. Unfortunately, this particular policy had not received that blessing. So she suffered for it. Otherwise, there are other chief justices who had applied it who, if similar applications were made, would have suffered a similar fate.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's what I refer to as a misfortune.
Right.
And then again, she presided over about 2 cases. One brought by Abronye, one brought by Dafiamapo, about the allowances or salaries that were being paid to first ladies. And she upholds the constitutional provisions that you cannot, as it were, spend from the exchequer unless, for an Article 71 office holder, unless the approval process is compliant with what the Constitution had upheld. And that was used against her because she was also using a policy that had not gone through that process. She suffered it, right? So I'll say that the arguments that some of us had been to court to argue, that the threshold for triggering Article 146 ought to be looked at again. That the sin for which you must be removed must be so grave, that the only punishment you should suffer should be removal, lose your job. Because I had gone to the Supreme Court to say, you say Charlotte Osei had broken the procurement processes.
Act, yeah.
You cannot associate 1 cedi benefit to Charlotte Osei, that she had taken 1 cedi from that procurement process that you questioned. And yet she was removed, right? In the same way, we asked the court, when you breach a procurement process, there's a procurement act that tells you what sanction you must suffer. The sanctions could include, that may not even be a sanction, could include that...
Surcharges and all?
No, because you didn't seek approval, you could later go for an approval.
Okay.
Okay, which is called ratification.
Right.
Many people were seeking ratification, they were being given. But Charlotte, because there was sort of, a plan to deal with her, she was seeking approval and she was being denied the approval. And that was used against her politically. Okay? So I say, why don't we find a way to graduate the offenses for which you can be caught and be punished by the ultimate, suffer the ultimate, which is removal? It's the same argument I have made, that if you look at Dampare, for example, he was hailed because he was doing something right. If there was something he wasn't doing right, was the best way to deal with him is simply remove him? There are people we have complaints against today that are being hauled to Article 146 process. What is their sin? Is this so grave that it should remove them? So this is the very first time I'm commenting on her removal. And I'm saying that, yes, she may have suffered. But if you look at the grounds, were they grave enough to lead to her removal? That is where I depart. That's whilst the Constitution may not have graduated the grounds for her removal, while she may have done some things that we can fault her, that she didn't do them right, the punishment for those things may not have been removal. And that is what we have to look at again.
Winston,
but as for the processes, they were complied with. I don't see a breach of the process. The processes were fully complied with.
Okay.
And she suffered as a result of
Solomon, do you hear that?
Well, I think first of all, we all do agree that to start with, even before I come to the processes, again, talking about the legacy of President Akufo-Addo, and as Samson rightly said, in terms of the governance architecture, it's not just about the economy or the finances. The legislature, the judiciary, the other public institutions, and all of that would have to work efficiently to ensure that our country gets to where it has to be. We, I believe, would all agree that in terms of the judiciary, particularly the Supreme Court, we got to a point where there was, whether we should call it a misconception or a perception, but there was somehow a negative public opinion about the judiciary. In fact, if you read the Afrobarometer data, trust in the judiciary was coming down. And that certainly is a very, very dangerous pattern. I believe that if trust in certain institutions decline, bad as it may be, the effect would not be as in the judiciary, because that is where, if we all feel offended, if we all feel, something bad is going on, we go to for adjudication. And we hope that the right things will be done, fairness will prevail, justice will prevail, and so on. So if you get to a point where people in the country feel that, well, these days, to go to the courts, you may not even get justice, it is quite worrying. I'm not saying that that's a fact, but of course, you cannot discount public opinion. And that is why in the US and elsewhere, the issue about ratings of the president is taken quite seriously. Because what do people think? And why do people think so? That's number one. Number two, still on the legacy of President Akufo-Addo, I think that a number of decisions were made that also accounted for the public opinion and perception about the judiciary in terms of certain appointments that were made. The same as maybe the Electoral Commission. And so even before the elections, there was this whole narrative that, oh, when we come, we'll do this. When we come, we'll remove this. When we come, we'll do that. And then, indeed, the party wins the election, comes into office, and even before the removal, there were still the same sentiments. As for the Chief Justice, or we have to clean the judiciary, and so on and so forth. Before then, certain decisions reset. Before then, certain decisions had been made about, some politically charged, cases, including the last-minute decision by the Speaker to remove the 4 MPs who had decided to go. Yes, and the speed with which, Afenyo Makin could get the Supreme Court to sit on that and make a decision and all of that, somehow created the impression that, well, the Supreme Court or the courts can be, is
it the case? Correct me. Is it the case that it's a first come, first serve in courts? Do the courts have that, power to decide that this is a very crucial matter, so we should attend to it?
Yes, they do. Yes. So what actually happened in the Afenyo Makin case, where within a very short time the court was constituted, it should be the norm.
Okay.
It should be the standard. That is the kind of court we are looking for as a country, right? Matthew Yinam's case, I expected the same kind of, posture from the court, that once it is an election petition and this is the effect it's going to have, the court ought to be proactive, seize the matter and say, we're going to deal with this matter every day until we have come to an end.
Should it be for certain type of cases or cut across? And would that be physical?
No, you can also look at the urgency of the matter.
Okay.
I've done a case, an election petition case. We've done from beginning of trial to the end of trial. I was defending one MP, and Godfrey Dami was on the opposite side. We did it in less than 2 weeks. Less than 2 weeks.
Would it not be because the Constitution provides a period for that?
From beginning to end, less than 2 weeks.
Okay, so forgive me, please.
It's the judge who decided that this is the way I want you guys to do it.
I want to finish off quickly.
Yes, quickly. So if we had to file things, she said file them electronically.
And Samson,
we did it.
Let me just add that I
have
had to answer questions on people who were conducting a research on behalf of the judiciary on how long these cases should take. And I felt 2 weeks was enough.
Right.
So on that score, for instance, people had come to me and said, we're conducting a research for the judiciary on election petitions. How long do you think it should take?
Right. And then we had, the SAL, the Santrophy Akpafo-Lolobi case, for 4 years before the Supreme Court.
Were there not some nuances in that case?
And when the decision on the 4 MPs was made, one of the points was that, the people should not be deprived of, an MP. The people should not be there without an MP. And we had a case where, in a particular jurisdiction within our country, people had lived for 4 years without an MP, and the matter had been before the Supreme Court. That raised a bit of curiosity. Before the same Supreme Court, of course, at that point, this the immediate past CJ.
Small correction.
Yes.
In the Ayawaso Wagon matter, the matter was not sitting in the Supreme Court. So the matter had gone through various courts, but ended there, right? So it's not as if the matter went to the Supreme Court and sat there for 4 years.
You're talking about the SAL, not Ayawaso. You mentioned Ayawaso.
I'm talking about Ayawaso West Wagon.
No, but
he's talking about SAL. Yes, he's talking about SAL.
Often we use the example, George Amu's case. We often use that example. That in this country, one case went to court about election petition. It took 4 whole years.
In a specific case, talk about SAL.
It's a SAL. It's a SAL.
But Samson, though, when the matter gets to the Supreme Court, that's the pinnacle of it. That's where we put the matter to rest.
Right.
So if it stays there, regardless of how long it's traveled from each stage of courts, the Supreme Court will bring final.
So we have to ask ourselves, at what point did
it got to the Supreme Court?
Yes.
Okay, Sullivan.
And then the same Supreme Court, if you remember the Domolevo case, the removal of Domolevo from office. Then there's a petition before the Supreme Court, a case before the Supreme Court to make a decision whether what the president did was legal or otherwise. And what happened? It stayed there for several years.
Chief Justice at that
Eventually, no, she was not. So I made that point, that even though at that point she was not. But I'm talking about the perception, the whole public opinion about the judiciary.
Yeah.
Now, back to the substantive matter about her removal. And I think that Samson is a lawyer. He's better placed to do the analysis. But what I'm happy about, Samson talks about the gravity of the offense or violation. So when I heard that we are talking about $14,000 and how it was spent and whether the husband or the daughter benefited and so on and so forth, initially my point was, oh, $14,000, Chief Justice of the Republic, maybe this is not a point. But I think it is not about the amount involved. I think it is the principle. Because when auditors make findings, sometimes, even if it is one city, they say, okay, take your money. But it's not about that. It's about why did it happen.
That same principle existed when there were other Chief Justices.
No, but I think,
why was it not applied?
I get you. The fact that somebody stole and there was no report for the person to be arrested would not justify stealing. It cannot be your defense that, oh, Winston did the same thing, he was not arrested. Kojo did, he was not arrested. Why would I do it and get arrested? Okay. So I think that is because in her case, a petition was filed.
Right.
What I am happy about, and not because what I'm happy about is why I'm happy about the situation, not because I think maybe there is some legitimacy to the point about 14,000 and how it was spent, and so on and so forth, but that the people who have made this decision, we would hold them to the same principle. It is not about whether it is $2,000 or 1,000 CD. If it is wrong, it is wrong. So if a CJ can be removed on the basis of the infractions that we are told about, then we would know how to hold our ministers, our deputy ministers, our CEOs, and even the president himself, to the task in terms of whatever the Constitution provides.
Right.
But otherwise, if it was wrong, it is wrong.
It was wrong yesterday, should be wrong today.
It was wrong, even if it was 1,000 or 2,000. The topmost in terms of the judiciary.
Okay.
And if she committed that, we have to hold her to and then so on that basis, I believe that it is good for our country also, because as I said, then we hold everyone to the same.
But the only thing is that that process goes through a political machine.
I'm just gonna go for a quick break, just a quick break. Stay with me. When I come, Kojo, your question will be that this principle and whatever is done to the judiciary, good or bad, I want to know what you think, in your view, is done to the judiciary. Winston, I will come to you on that as well. But you stay with me. We're reviewing the news that has happened in 2025. Please stay. With us, this is Joy News 2025 under review. And could you just before we went on that break, I wanted to know all of this that we've heard about the removal of the Chief Justice. What did it do to the judiciary, to you?
Well, I think even though that may not have been the intended effect, the net effect is that the judiciary became a little bit weaker. I'll explain. And let me start by making a statement, right? And this statement I'm about to make, not only will the things I say afterwards prove it, but the things everybody says tonight will prove it too.
That's interesting.
The greatest enemy of Ghana is Ghanaians. All right, let me demonstrate. So, as soon as this election was won, the ruling party started to tell us that they will remove the Chief Justice. Did anybody stop to think for a minute about Article 147, the process that is required?
146.
Yeah, 146.
146.
146, thank you. And the process that is required, did anybody stop to think about it and ask themselves, how can a political party say in advance that they will remove a Chief Justice and mean it?
I thought they meant they were research, or they were quite categorical.
Yeah, but the way to remove a Chief Justice follows a process laid down by our Constitution. That process requires several moving parts to do the right thing. someone must petition. The petition must go to the president. The president must pass it on to
Council of
State. Council of State must find prima facie. A committee must be set up. All these moving parts. The committee must then hear the case. They must hear both sides. And at the end of it, make a ruling. And only then can the Chief Justice be removed. But in advance of all this, the party was telling you, we'll do this. They were telling you. So they knew in advance every step of the process and knew that it would come to pass. Somebody will make a petition. The president will pass it on. The Council of State will find prima facie. Council of State hadn't even been constituted by the time we were hearing them saying that they will remove the Chief Justice. But they knew.
You know, that under Akufo-Addo, a petition had actually even been filed.
Yeah.
For the removal of the CJS.
It was determined.
Yes.
It was determined disfavorably.
Never even got the case
it was
for that one.
There was no prima facie.
Never even. Well, there you go.
There was no prima facie. That's the determination.
There you go. So that case never even, featured in this process. The Council of State hadn't even been constituted yet, but the party knew that they will find prima facie, and then they will set up a committee that will investigate. That committee will hear testimony from both sides. The party knew which side would win, and it happened just as they predicted.
Is that not what the law is supposed to be? Laws have to be predictable.
How can the law be like that?
The law should be predictable.
How can a political
but I think the point could
predict how everything will happen?
Yeah, but if you have the evidence, you can predict the outcome.
If you have committed some offense and I know this offense can lead to your removal,
but you still
I should be bold enough to be able to say it.
You still can't predict how the accused will be defended. You cannot predict what case the accused will make to defend.
But I should be confident in what I say.
Yeah, but this was
because
not
of
confidence.
this, it should be removed.
This was not confidence. They declared it as a policy. We will reset
the
judiciary and remove the Chief Justice. No, I hope you are getting the point I'm making.
Yeah.
Right? So and then of course everything happened just as predicted. Now what I'm saying to you is this. In this country, our laws are beautiful. They are beautifully written. Beautifully written. People come from other countries to come and study how we write our laws. But our laws have expiry dates. They are only useful until they are in the way of a politician. Then they render it useless. They will look at this law and find the one small loophole through which air is passing, and they will all pass there. And make the entirety of the law useless. So now what's going to happen is this. We have now established that there is a way to go through 146 and remove a Chief Justice, if that is what you desire.
Which means the Chief Justice must be so cautious not to even do anything at all.
Listen, it's an important point you make, and I will come to that. Okay. Because I said that the greatest enemy of Ghanaians is Ghana. Of Ghana is Ghanaians, right? On both sides, of course. Politicians are Ghanaians too, perhaps the most dangerous of Ghanaians. So this is how politicians make our laws useless, right? But there's the other side too, that is what you are pointing to. The Chief Justice Tokonu, you will notice Samson described what happened as a quote-unquote attack on the judiciary. Who defended the Chief Justice? Did the judiciary come to her defense? The people who came to testify for her were former Chief Justices. The existing people she was working with, did they come to her defense?
Something could they have?
Ask yourself why. How many she was issuing statements? Did they issue statements?
Okay.
It's an individual decision, but the people, some of those who also testified against her for the petitioner were former, staff.
There you go.
Of the judiciary.
Yeah.
There you go. So we didn't get some groundswell that what you are doing, executive, is going to weaken us as the judiciary, and so we stand against it on principle. We didn't see that. That speaks to something else. It speaks to personality. It means that the lady holding the position forget about whether she broke laws. She wasn't liked. That much is obvious. And you see, when you are given a certain position, you can't afford to be unlikable. You can't afford to have obvious character flaws. It's happening now with the Office of the Special Prosecutor. An office that everybody generally agrees is good, is useful. But you are suddenly hearing talk of it being scrapped because of the personalities at the center of it. Because of the personalities. When Martin Amidu was Special Prosecutor, did you hear people calling for the office to be scrapped?
It was fairly new, to be
Yeah, but it's not as if Martin Amidu didn't have controversies. Right? So it goes back to personality. There are certain roles where we can't afford to have bad apples. Chris Rock, American comedian, has a common thing that he says. He says there are some jobs where you can't afford to have bad apples. Imagine if an airline said, most of our pilots are good, but we have a few bad apples who like to fly into mountains. Would that be acceptable? It's the same for the judiciary. You can't afford to be a person who lives below reproach. You must be above it at all times. You must be that special type of human that when we look at, we don't see your flaws. It's not that you don't have flaws, but when we look at you, we don't see them. That is who you need to be in order to sit in a position like Chief Justice. And when you fall short of it, they will find a way to get you out. And not only will that remove you as an individual, but it will weaken the institution because the way you have conducted yourself reflects on the institution you represent.
But what you say is actually in the Constitution when it comes to qualification to be a Chief Justice, high moral standards.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Precisely.
So it has to be there.
The framers knew exactly what they were saying.
I'll go.
So if you ask me, what effect did it have on the judiciary? It had a negative effect on the judiciary, but it's not only the fault of the politicians that were removing her, it's also the fault of the judiciary, including the Chief Justice who was removed.
I never thought about it that way. I didn't. Winston?
Well, you know, when I saw the petition and I looked at the conditions of service, I knew there was a problem. I knew there was a problem because, look, you talked about 80 billion, irregularities over the last 5 years. And, we talk about that. I use that also for...
Don't say irregularities. Say stealing and misuse.
No. I don't do stealing. But I mean, because I say irregularities because if you look at the Auditor General's report, some of the irregularities are actually taxes that are due the states, loans. But you see, we'll add all of them and say, we've lost money. This is the point. The moment your condition of service says you can travel with your spouse on an official trip, or a family member on an official trip, any amount it would cost, the state must pay. Now, the moment you decide to travel with your spouse or child on a private trip, it becomes an irregularity. Simply put, that is not what your condition says you are entitled to. You're done.
Sorry, which condition of service are you talking about? Because the conditions of service, the conditions of service of the Chief Justice is determined by the President, right? And that does not include whether the judiciary has a policy, a travel policy, that says that a justice of the appeals court is entitled to this, the Chief Justice is entitled to this, or this one is entitled to that. So you're talking about strictly the conditions of service as per the appointment, and not whatever policy the judicial service has in place, which people contest and says, no.
Okay, this is the Chief Justice's, the judicial service, the conditions of, what her official travel she's entitled to in her official travel.
So you are reading from
that don't reference the 2019 policy that they made, because that is where she was, that's what I call her misfortune.
But even she went against that policy.
Other Chief Justices had
but Samson, hold on. That very policy that we're talking about was very clear. The policy states that official travels, you can go with a family member. The policy doesn't state that you can do an official travel, a private travel, with a family member. And the petitioner referenced this. What I am saying is that the moment you do this, so let me just, for purpose of analysis, let me just get to this. It says official travel by the Chief Justice. The Chief Justice will be accorded maximum security and courtesies on all official travels. Travel with aide de camp and protocol officer or any other person.
You're looking for B2.
Okay,
personal travel by the Chief Justice. B.
Okay, let me just
that was
get
what
to
was in contention.
B2.
Let me get to.
Let me read it for you. I have it here.
Yeah,
so it says here, B2 says, where the Chief Justice embarks on a personal or private foreign travel, he or she shall be accompanied by the security alone.
Exactly.
In this case, you didn't go with the security, went with the...
This is the point.
And you describe it as irregularity.
It's irregular.
So then the committee now had to arrive at the point that this irregularity amounts to a stated misconduct.
So, something, even if I were to use this policy, okay, if I were to use this policy, my understanding is that if you didn't travel with your spouse on an official trip, it's a savings to the state. It does not mean that you transfer that to your private trip.
Which was her explanation.
You don't.
Yeah.
You don't. Because the rule is clear.
But what I'm saying is actually very serious. You're saying that former Chief Justices also violated...
Yeah, so that's where the problem is. Because the former Chief Justices, why they didn't see this.
And therefore,
this is very
their
clear.
defense of her before the committee was self-serving.
Evans, I am saying that, so that defense in itself is problematic.
Yeah. I mean, it actually makes a very, very serious indictment on Sofia Kufu, who was before the committee to defend her.
It's a very problematic defense.
That they went before the committee to defend her because it was self-serving.
I have told
that if someone had flagged it at the time...
She would have been gone too. But that is where I will take me to the next one. But let me just make this point. And it's the point, I make this point because, look, when we say, oh, this person, Auditor General, we ask, I say, look, a lot of the things, some of them, they probably didn't spend their money. In fact...
It's such a serious indictment. I'm thinking about it.
Hold on a second.
So all of them violated their own policy.
I remember.
But it comes back to what Kojo Yankton says, that she probably then was not lying.
I am making the point that...
I transferred the benefits to my private.
They had used and benefited from
the travel policy.
A 2019 policy that was done by the service.
But I'm doing a 2019 policy.
That's what we're reading.
This is a 2019 policy.
Yeah, that's what I'm referring to.
So did they travel on the private trip with their spouse?
The lawyers and the petitioners did a good job. What they said was that, look, your benefits, your terms and conditions, your terms of service and condition are set out only by the president.
No, we understand that. We have seen that their own policy.
To have used a policy which is not originated by the president and approved by Parliament.
But even the policy violated it. That's the point that he's making.
No, the point I'm making is
that the policy says on the private trip, you can't go with any other person other than your security.
I am making is that
Evans, someone was into London.
The policy says, look, B2, where the Chief Justice embarks on a personal or private foreign travel, she shall be accompanied by the security alone.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I am saying that the argument...
Now, first of all, she admits that I didn't go with the security.
And I'm saying the argument that because I did not travel with my spouse on an official trip, which I'm allowed to, doesn't, for me...
So she transferred that benefit.
It hasn't happened.
To the private trip.
Can a caution be sufficient for this?
No.
Punishment
it's stated misbehavior.
Evans. Evans, you see, this regularity is what will get to the committee for them to determine that it's stated misbehavior.
Yeah, but they came to that.
The policy does not describe it as stated misbehavior.
It is misbehavior.
Hold on, Evans, hold on. Ordinary, you can make that point. But you see, I had just made reference to the Auditor General's report, and I have said to you that when we flagged COVID-19 expenditure, we flagged about $500 million not having gone through GIFMIS.
Irregularities.
The reason we flagged that is we do not trust how it was spent. Because then GIFMIS would have given us the means of accountability to track that expenditure and see the right things were done. Once you skip that, there is a possibility You didn't do the right thing. Now, can this be rectified? Well, some people will overlook it. Some people will say, oh.
So you surcharge.
Some people say, okay, then you pay and walk. But once you're surcharged, it means you did the wrong thing.
And then missing, exactly.
Now, if that was always the situation, this is not the policy. So you've gone against the policy.
But let's remember that this was not the only ground.
Of course. That's true.
Including dismissal of some
we agree. We're just looking at
including how the list of some judges for potential appointment to the also came up.
You're an accountant, Wednesday.
These days I like money. And how people spend money.
Only these days.
I like how people spend money. So that's why
Guys, I want us to move quickly to corruption and accountability. So land on that, please.
Because of this, and I've made this point before. You remember I made this point on the SMS. The moment I saw this, I knew that there was a problem.
He has issues.
There was a problem. But this is the other point. You ask, could this have been rectified? When I was coming into this program, I had a conversation with an NDC person, and I was talking about the Chief Justice dismissal. What he said to me, and he said, when you go, because I was making my accounting, who was an accountant, he said, oh, I agree with you on all of this. But add this, that our love for restitution would create problems for us in this country. And I make this point because on any day, this would have passed in our system. But in this case, it didn't pass. But let me also make the point that in this country called Ghana, it's about time we held people based on the laws we passed. And I will tell you one truth. Because Dan Botry, when he was minister, said something under the Kufuor regime. Said any minister who says he has read a full document is a liar. And I make the point because most of the time, and if you look at this policy, the implementers of the policy will shock you. Let me just read the policy to you. These are the implementers of the policy. Implementers, Judicial Secretary, Deputy Judicial Secretary, Communications Directorate staff, Finance Directorate staff, Judicial Service teams involved in financial management who need to know about this policy directive. Who? At this point in time, some of them could have, one person could have told the Chief Justice, you don't qualify for this. Did anybody do that? Did she say, I qualify and still insisted?
You don't qualify for what? This is something that's normal. That they
but it's a law catch. By the way, can you 60 seconds on this?
No, but you see, you don't qualify for something.
Yeah.
Because if I were the one working on this policy, I would have flagged it and said, you don't qualify for this. Because the moment I give you the chance to do that, irrespective, look, of whatever the convention.
The convention. Time, let me make a point on just what you said. The custodian of this policy is the Judicial Secretary.
Yes.
It's at the top of this policy says the custodian shall be the Judicial Secretary.
Yes.
The Judicial Secretary, she says in the explanation, approved this particular sort of misapplication, if you like, because she didn't qualify for this. But watch this. The Judicial Secretary resigns before the process, when the process was about to start. Remember?
He resigns as a Judicial
Secretary, yes.
She's a judge.
Yeah, I know, but I'm not going there. I'm talking about the Judicial Secretary. Yeah. She resigned.
Did she resign because of this?
I don't know, but I'm saying. But the coincidence was, you just have to, it's a fact that she resigned.
Could it also be a fact that she's seeing that there's a change in government?
It's possible, but whatever it is, I'm just making a point.
The CG is going.
Hold on. Evans, hold on.
After all, she's a judge.
No, she's a judge.
Hold on. Samson cannot say this, but at least you and I can reasonably infer from what Samson is saying. My guy. A lot of things happen. Kojo Yankson makes the point. Look, any government that says, I will take you out, and I'll end on this note, there are people within the NPP who have said, no matter what laws they pass, no matter how watertight the laws are, they will find a way to move the next.
And on that point, and that is what I want to look for on that point. He just landed on the point I wanted to make, which is...
And add to the fact that there are more petitions, especially the Special Prosecutor.
Constitutional review work that HPC Pempenko did will sufficiently cure this lacuna, a problem with the Constitution 146. Something has been screaming on top of his lungs since he did the case with Loretta Lamte, that let's define stated misbehavior. I looked at the CRC report. I'm not sure they did that. And I read what they actually recommend when it comes to removing the Chief Justice. They simply have this sort of moved the constitutional provisions around, the petition now goes, instead of the president, goes to the Council of State. So he says, the aggrieved person, that is what they are recommending, right? The aggrieved person may submit a confidential petition for the removal of the Chief Justice to the Council of State. So they've changed that instead of going to the president. The Council of State now has 7 days to form a committee that looks at prima facie or not. If there's no prima facie, it dies. If there's a prima facie, they tell the president. And they inform the president and they inform the speaker. The president, having been informed, may then, the president may suspend the Chief Justice once he's been told. The council shall then appoint 5-member tribunal. So it's no longer the president who is doing so. It is the Council of State. And just a second, the 5-member tribunal, the president only has 1 appointment. Speaker has 1 appointment. Other agencies have 1 appointment each. I doubt very much when I go to this recommendation that it cures that fundamental issue. Because when it comes to the grounds, it says the committee recommends that the grounds of removal shall be the same for all justices. The grounds for removal shall include, and this is the Chief Justice, mental or physical incapacity, incompetence, gross misconduct, which is another way of saying stated misbehavior. Violation of the Judicial Code of Conduct, or bankruptcy. They've added that one. My point is, I don't think this fixes the problem.
But the majority, Evans, let me draw your attention to the fact that the majority leader had said that they're looking to set out a regulation that will cure these errors because the Constitution cannot.
Need constitutional review to fix that. In Parliament, subsequently.
They are working
to define that.
Is the Constitution not better? Because the regulation, another regulation could be passed.
No, the regulation is on the back of the Constitution. In fact, when I appeared before the Supreme Court in 2018 over Charlotte Osei's removal,
that's the point
I was referencing to the court that they had said many years ago that the Constitution requires that there should be the passage of an instrument to guide this process. And it has not been passed.
Can't that instrument be amended in Parliament?
When there's an issue, and they say that watertight, they then amend the regulation.
Look, Samson.
That makes the process a bit cumbersome.
Let me borrow your question you asked H. Kwesi Prempeh on Saturday. You asked him a question about the election of MMDCs. And you saw how he answered you. I say, in this country, we play around, we dance around a lot of things without mincing words. We pass laws that ultimately favor the very people we say would abuse the laws. Watch this. What we are doing. Now that we actually have a chance to say, let's deal with this situation once and for all, we have left it to the politicians. Trust me, we will come back if God grants us life.
Yeah, I mean, so that's why I was suggesting.
Because we'll come back here. Because when all of us said they should elect.
I'm going to ignore all of you and go to Suleiman.
When all of us said we should elect.
I'm just going to go to Suleiman now, Winston.
Finds a nice way to dance around the issue.
Yeah, but Winston, this is just 30 seconds. The majority leader has said they're going to pass regulations, but the Constitutional Review Committee had an opportunity.
That's the point.
I believe to sort of just
the regulations. But the point is,
there are things you can't do with the Constitution.
Yeah. Remember,
to do with legislation, subsidiary legislation, or enactment.
And remember, like this is the third effort in terms of amending or reviewing our Constitution. We've not gone anywhere yet. They've just submitted it to the president. Whether it would be accepted, winnowed, or whatever, we don't know. So we cannot be referencing it as if it's an accepted document.
No, it's not. I mean, but it's the president that asked him.
So even if the Constitution Review Committee had made that provision or that recommendation, we would be expecting to see whether the president would accept it or not accept it, and so on and so forth.
Let's probably just wrap on this by bringing in corruption and corruption-related matters, accountability. Of course, talking about petitions, the special prosecutor as well, nearly 15 petitions, just to be sure. Multiple petitions, I'd say. I don't have the count now.
We are told about 12 of them, 3 against the special prosecutor and the rest against the EC bosses.
Okay, in total then. Okay. But Suleiman, did you ever think that you'd wake up one day to hear that the special prosecutor will be petitioned to be removed? Did you ever think about it?
Well, it's not surprising. First, because of the nature of the office and its mandate. In fact, people who are being investigated and unhappy with whatever is happening could petition. Nothing stops them from petitioning even if they are being investigated. And so for me, it is not surprising. Of course, personally, I have my disappointments with the conduct of the Office of the Special Prosecutor to the point where we all hailed it. We all celebrated it. When Martin Amidu was appointed, you know, we all were happy about it because we said, okay, for the president to have appointed somebody who belongs to a different party and we know his position, the efforts he had personally made on the Wyoming case and so on and so forth, then it gave us the conviction that President Akufo-Addo really, really meant it when he said, I'm setting up the Office of the Special Prosecutor to deal with the issues of, you know, corruption cases that perhaps has, you know, partisan people implicated, and because of that, the Attorney General may not be able to take those cases up. But reflecting again on the creation of the Office of the Special Prosecutor, I say, well, if the only reason really was that, or is that, there could be cases that ministers and so on are implicated, and because the Attorney General at any point in time himself or herself would also be a minister, it would be difficult for him or her to prosecute his colleagues, and so we need an independent office and all of that. But if you read the law, even though it says that it's independent, you see still the relationship between the Attorney General and the Office of the Special Prosecutor. And I think, again, talking about what Winston said and the fact that sometimes we have to be emphatic, if we cannot get to the point where we say the Attorney General at any point in time can prosecute all cases, whether or not it's about his colleague minister or her colleague minister and so on, then maybe we cannot really have a solution. Because why? Whoever is there as the Special Prosecutor would also have relatives, and in any case, the Special Prosecutor was appointed by someone. You know, but that aside, I think so far, if I look at how much we are committing to the Office of the Special Prosecutor, we are seeing the duplicity of officers. And the other time somebody made a point, at what point do we say this is a case for the Special Prosecutor? And at what point do we say this is a case to be prosecuted by the Office of the Attorney General? I think that's really something that remains.
You're also calling for that clarity, the call that there should be a consolidated investigative body that is independent of the Attorney General.
Yes, because if you look at, so the Attorney General now is prosecuting what? Edubuahe,
yes,
the National Service.
He's taken over former Finance Minister as well.
Former Finance Minister and so on.
But
these are all corruption-related cases. So if they are corruption-related cases and we have the Office of the Special Prosecutor, that is also supposed to be dealing with corruption-related cases. Then at what point do we say, okay, this one is for OSP and this one is for the Attorney General? So I tend to then say, well, did we go or did we come, as they say? You know, especially when for the OSP was set up in 2018. Is that correct? 2018?
2018.
So this is about what, 7 years?
Yeah, 7 years.
7 years. And we really haven't had evidence of concrete results.
They said that they have prevented certain things. Have you not seen that?
Look, I mean,
is it that we have the appetite for
foundation with our small Fort Estate? You know, how many millions have been?
TOR is working now. The corruption index.
They flagged it.
You know,
that's in they did. Actually, they stopped the sale of TOR. It's working now. They say.
But I'm saying that if that were,
they have stopped payroll fraud. They have flagged a few.
Well,
Kojo, I will not ask you about the Office of the Special Prosecutor.
Why not?
I will ask you about the AG.
When, and OSP was there. Okay. You know, and so I don't think that I am convinced that these are actions that they took as a result of which certain crimes that would have been committed were prevented. You know, because otherwise I'm saying, look, even with a small media house, what haven't we done? And if you look at the resources that are being committed, we have SRAJ, anti-corruption, IOCO, anti-corruption, Financial Intelligence Center, anti-corruption. The police CID is there. Attorney General is there. And all of that. And yet, corruption perception index. What is happening?
Would you say same about IOCO? The way you feel about the Office of the Special Prosecutor. Well, IOCO has existed for years. Do you feel the same?
First of all, IOCO was in existence before the OSP. And so we said, well, it is because we are lacking something. So we need to create that thing to be able to deal with the problems that we have. And so we all looked up to the OSP to say, okay, this is the panacea to our problem. And I don't think that the judgment that we will place on Iyoko will be the same as what we will place on the Office of the Special Prosecutor.
Okay.
Initially, it was lack of resources. And now we are told office accommodation provided, resources going in there. How many investigators does the OSP have? As many. And so, in as much as I haven't gotten to the point where I'll say, yes, scrap it, I think that they need to do more to convince some of us that.
Let me attempt to see if I'll get a quick yes or no. Evans,
Yep.
What do you think? Scrap it or not?
No, definitely not.
Well, I'm not asking for the reason
Okay,
yet.
no problem.
Definitely. Winston, scrap it or not?
You see, certain questions must be explained before answered.
When I tell you that Winston is
when
growing, you will not agree.
When you ask me scrap it or not, I must explain my point before.
No, you must take the position before I ask.
Oh, I need to explain my point before.
Before you take a position.
But
I will not ask Samson this question, but I'm going to ask.
I recuse myself from any conversations.
Okay. I wanna ask you, Samson, but.
Why are you not asking me?
I'll give my explanation later.
Absolutely not. It should not be scrapped.
Should not be scrapped. Okay.
Absolutely should not be scrapped.
But can it be absorbed into another investigative body?
The Professor H. Kwesi Prempeh Committee's proposal is that there should be an independent ethics and anti-corruption body, commission. And that commission will absorb the Office of the Special Prosecutor.
Okay.
Excellent.
Okay.
At all times, there must be an independent prosecutor. I've spoken to attorneys general, previous, and they all confess to me that forget it. I can't prosecute somebody I sit in a cabinet with. I can't prosecute a party person. It doesn't work. Okay? They tell you and they explain to you why it simply will not work.
Would that not be defeated if the person is appointed by a president that was elected?
Say that again.
Would this principle not be defeated if the special prosecutor, as we have it, is appointed by a president?
Prosecutor or the Independent Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, if you establish it, is that they are not accountable to the politician. That's the major difference. They are not accountable to the politician. And as someone who is in the anti-corruption front, I will say any day that I think that we have been in we have been in a hurry to expect the Special Prosecutor's Office to do more than established offices have failed to do, which is most unfair. Whilst the law was passed in 2017, close to the end of 2017, the office was established in 2018, yes. But by the end of 2019, we did not have a proper office, so to speak. Okay? By the end of 2020, we did not have an office that was tooled. It was sometime by 2022, 2023 that the office could be called an office properly, so to speak. Okay? So if we use all those years, sometimes I believe, you know, a lot of the times we fail to interrogate.
I couldn't explain it.
Interrogate the facts.
I mean,
5 minutes.
Okay?
I like to be biased or something.
The facts. See, you are establishing an office.
Yeah.
You have Iyoko, which has been established for how many years? Since Serious Fraud Office. They have all the tools. They have all the budget. They have built the office over decades. Then you set up an office, which is supposed to be built from the scratch. You give them a budget which is more than Iyoko is getting, and you cry foul that they are getting more than Iyoko, but they are not giving the same results. That's completely wrong.
We're quick to actually assess the OSP, but I want to
ask just a quick question. So if you read the OSP Act,
right,
it talks about an act to establish the Office of the Special Prosecutor to deal with corruption and corruption-related offenses of politically exposed persons in the performance of their functions, as well as persons in the private sector involved in the commission of alleged or suspected corruption and corruption-related offenses. Prosecute these offenses on the authority of the Attorney General. What does that mean? I don't understand.
Because the Constitution...
It is statutorized. The power belonging to the Attorney General to prosecute in the realm is in Article 88. Then you use an act to take a part of that power away from the Attorney General. And then remember, before you read that, read the provision before that. Because the provision under Section 4, the provision under Section 4 before the next one tells you that we take the power from Evans, but Evans does not have the power anymore to dictate to you how you should work.
But
that's the difference.
But he can report to the Attorney General and pass part of his regular reporting.
So in the States, there must be somebody who must appear before Parliament and account for certain things. So
he gives it
that's
to
the reason. That's the reason you must do some reporting to the Attorney General.
Okay.
Of course, it has a board, right?
Yeah.
Who are members of the board? IOCO is there. The police is there. Financial Intelligence Center, they are all there. The GRA, all of them are there, right? So, what are we talking about, really?
And by the way,
then it's only fair that I want to go to. I insist, and I want to go to.
So
Kujo.
you have to give my 30 seconds.
No.
Strictly, because
okay, strictly.
On just to expand on
Proceed.
Absolutely not. What really is the problem with the OSP? I don't get it. So there's been accusations against him as the SP. It hasn't been proven yet. So you have to discount that until it's proven by the petitions have been forwarded. We are waiting for that. So, but what really is the problem? I hear people say that we haven't seen results. And when they say that, they're looking for convictions.
Yeah.
NPP were in power for 8 years. For 8 years. The Opuni case. They started that case in 2017.
Right.
Did they succeed in getting a conviction against the man?
No.
Nope.
It's taken what? 8? It took 7 years. Let's look at Oral. The NDC grassroots, very recently, they've been very, very upset about what they perceive as delay. The Attorney General had to address it in the press conference he did before this last one, to ask and to appeal for patience. It's taken almost a year. He's yet to... The cases haven't even really started. Going to court, preliminary matters, and yet you expect somehow that in the previous government, one case took 7 years. They have no closure. The Opuni case has been dismissed now. It's no longer being pursued by the Attorney General. They were in power. They had all the powers of the state. And they couldn't prosecute Opuni, an opposition member. Right? And so to think that the special prosecutor somehow, they've been what? The office is 7 years?
Well,
if you take
like
away the establishment, the time it took to establish, maybe 5 years or whatever it is, that he will secure a number of convictions all of a sudden.
Especially for high
I really think that we sometimes just being unfair. If you really strip it off, they are the administrative stuff that they've done, like the corruption risk assessment that they did on the Japa. That stopped it.
Yes.
I mean, I saw Steve Mattel make the point that the time that we talked about setting up a Japa, gold was $1,500 an ounce. Today is about $4,000 an ounce. If we had done a Japa at the time, imagine how much we would have lost. Martin Amidu stopped it with his corruption risk assessment. Isn't that the one he called the president the meta serpent of corruption?
Yes.
No, let me finish.
Please let him run.
And then you have the Tor matter. This current SP also did the same corruption risk assessment, and that led to it's been stopped. We've heard the stories about how Tor is now.
There was one at GRA before Tor.
GRA before that. So what are we really talking about? If it's about convictions, it isn't something that happens in a day. It takes time. And last time they gave an update, they have several cases in court that have been prosecuted by an institution that doesn't have the same number of lawyers as the Attorney General has, who takes 7 years plus and could not secure a conviction against a political opponent.
It brings to the fore the assessments of the Attorney General, which I want to go to Kujo for.
First of all, I think that the office being scrapped.
Wait, so you recused yourself on this matter? Because of that, I'm going to entrench that, and I'm going to...
I have a problem with the recommendation by HQC Members Committee.
If you recuse yourself, it touches the symptoms. I want to.
No, but hold on.
It's fair that I go to
hold on.
jail.
When you are tested, and you consistently brief us.
Just tell his guests in 2026.
And you consistently brief us.
They'll do same.
We are pursuing these cases. You see, Ghanaians and our expectations. When you tell us you are in court, we are waiting for the conviction. Even though the law says he must present these things before, make these reports. The moment you organize a press conference and say, this man is under my radar, I am doing this, I have done that, the next question they'll ask you is, so the press conference that you did, what has become of it? So my point is that, look, do the work. The work will speak.
Well, and this is why I want to come to you, because we're very quick to assess the OSP and the other related investigative bodies. But the Attorney General, what are your assessments of his performance so far?
Me? Yes? Okay. All right. Dominic Ayine is our new Attorney General. Attorney General is supposed to be Ghana's lawyer. They represent their client, Ghana. So I'm concerned because I don't think Dominic Ayine is Ghana's lawyer. I don't think he is. I think he's a great lawyer, but I don't think we are his client. The reason why I say this is that, very soon after he was appointed, there was a series of nolle prosequis. Is that the right way to say it? A series of them. There's several cases that he looked at and said, wait, no case. This one, no case. This one, no. Now, one of the interesting ones was the Upuni case, which, as Evans has pointed out, had been dragging for some time. He looked at the case and then in a press conference explained to us Upuni's lawyer's defense. Basically, his reason for not representing his client, Ghana, in the Upuni case was his opponent's defense.
If it's a good defense, why not?
Is that a reason to not represent your client? Is that a reason to not represent your client? What's your job? Your job is to represent your client. Your opponent has a case. You counter the case. You don't come and tell us that your reason.
But if it's a bad case,
reason
you don't go to court. If it's a bad case,
no. He didn't say they have a bad case. Mm-hmm. He outlined how good their case is.
You can imply that means the state has a bad case.
Yeah. Right?
If you imply the state has a bad case.
So you decided. You decided.
He's going to be the one prosecuting.
Yes, but who is his client?
No, so the client is the state of Ghana.
Thank you. And the state of Ghana has presented a case in court.
A bad case.
In his opinion.
Yes.
Whose opinion is it that determines whether a case is good or bad?
Your lawyer.
Judge?
Your lawyer.
It's the judge.
Your lawyer can also tell you.
But the lawyer must take the brief.
Your lawyer's job is
your lawyer can tell you whether your case is. Something will tell you.
Your lawyer's job is.
It's the way something is sitting just calmly.
Listen, imagine hiring a lawyer. Imagine hiring a lawyer.
Who tells you we'll lose?
Who tells you that? Who tells you that?
The lawyer on the other side has a far superior.
He tells you we'll lose, so let's go and settle it.
And you see, he's doing the same thing with Ken Ofori-Atta. He has come to tell us that he's filed the documentation for extradition. But Ken Ofori-Atta has top-notch lawyers.
But he's just putting you on guard.
He's telling us that to manage our expectations because the guy's lawyers are top-notch. So
no, you forgot. He said that he doesn't fear them. Did you forget that?
Why did you have to tell us that they are top-notch?
But is that what he really meant?
Why do you have to tell us that they are top-notch?
Because Ken Ofori-Atta's lawyers
and you see,
will not face Ghana's lawyers. They will face the U.S., Department of Justice lawyers. For the extradition process, it's not Ghanaian lawyers who are going to do the case.
But is it
the U.S. lawyers.
Isn't it Ghana's case that has been presented?
But the Ken's lawyers will face U.S. lawyers and not Ghana's lawyers.
When they are facing,
I know that there will be two persons from the OSP's office, there'll be two from the AG's office to go and support the U.S. lawyers. But it's the U.S. lawyers who argue the case.
When they face the U.S. government, which case would the U.S. government be presenting? Is it not the one that our lawyers have given them?
Correct.
Yes. So if after you hand over your case, you then come and tell us that I've handed the case to them, but they have top-notch lawyers. What are you telling us? What are you telling us?
But what the lawyer... Something, do you not do that with your clients? Do you not do that?
So for me...
At the very start, we do it as lawyers. If you have a bad case, I will tell you it's
Look, if case. Dominic Aine is our lawyer, sometimes it's also perception. I mean, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not going to law school. But when your lawyer comes to tell you that, oh, this guy that you say we should prosecute for mismanaging money to this amount, I'll share the money with him. He can keep 40%. He should bring 60%. And then we don't have cases.
Which case was that again?
I'm talking about
Dufour. Oh, yeah.
Dufour.
Your lawyer is telling the accused that you bring 60%. Let's share the thing.
He didn't add let's share the thing.
I'm adding it.
Back to the point.
I'm adding it. That's the effect of it.
An independent prosecutor.
That's the effect of it.
You sincerely expect that an attorney general appointed by an NDC president will prosecute Kobna Dufour or prosecute Oponi. You expect that to happen?
I don't expect him to share the booty.
You think, for example...
I don't expect him to go and split the booty with the guy that is accused of taking it.
You're right.
I don't expect that.
You're right.
Yes.
You think Martin Amidu will not do it?
I think in the end, Martin Amidu may have to, withdraw or resign because you'll be told not to do it.
But will he listen?
Yeah, but you see,
but if you don't listen, the man went to a meeting with Mills and stormed out.
This one is going ahead of himself. This one is going ahead of himself. Let me just wrap this up, Winston. This one is going ahead of himself. Whether he's been instructed to do so or not, that one we don't know. But he has come to tell us that this is what I'm going to do with the guy. He should bring 60 and keep 40.
As much as I
you say he's our lawyer. I'm sorry.
What Ayine did.
I'm sorry, he's not our lawyer.
He makes a point. Ayine makes a point that when Beige offered to make payment and the state went to court, the state lost. So, based on what he has seen, it is better to engage. And you lawyers do that. Look, we may have a problem. But let me tell you the other point. Kojo, Samson here is a lawyer. For some reason, a lot of these cases, the state loses. For some reason, the state will lose. So sometimes, instead of blaming the Attorney General, you might as well settle for that. And that's why I agree with you. You probably would say if an independent person was leading this.
The Attorney General has told you now that he will not take that kind of cut. He will not do 60%, 40%.
No, he should reverse
He's even told you that the NSS matter, somebody has offered 20 plus for 30 plus million.
He says he thinks we can get more.
No, but in fact, lessons from the plea bargaining in the Atuesian case, we will put interest on it. You should put in. You should reverse it.
In Kobna Dufour's case, there is no plea bargaining, so to speak.
Yes.
In the plea bargain process, you will be put before a court and you will plead guilty. You will be convicted, and you have that criminal record of an ex-convict hanging over you. He escaped. He is not a convict.
I know.
Yes.
I'm saying that, but I'm saying that.
You can get to it, but I'm just going to take a quick break, and when I come back, gentlemen, we're going to have to talk about Galamsey, we're going to have to talk about Gold Board, we've got to talk about the helicopter crash in just 12 minutes.
We haven't even talked about the economy.
The economy will fit into the... Winston brought that up anyway, so so in 12 minutes, you have to agree on how you're going to let that happen once I go on a break and come back. Well, thank you so much for staying with us. This is Joy News 2025 in review. We shall go straight to security. I know that Evans and Winston, they have a special appetite for the economy. And I bet you they've been talking about the economy from January till now. It's just okay that we get into security because August 6th happened to us. Yeah. And my question to you, Evans, would be, what did that do to our security? The architecture of our security.
I mean, this is a very tragic memory indeed. I remember where I was, but straight to the point. I still think that we haven't honored their memory enough. It exposed our very fragile, almost non-existent national security architecture, but also the substance that should back it. Basically flew in a helicopter. Of course, we were subsequently told after the investigations that there were issues with the equipment that they were using. The navigation system was on top notch. The helicopter itself was completely out of date. there were fundamental issues that we had known for years and neglected to fix. So this was avoidable. If you read the report, it was avoidable. And then it happened. And then we saw the carrying of the bodies in sacks, and it was explained whatever way. But it just exposed us. But for me, the biggest heartbreaking part of this is that they died because of illegal mining. They were on their way to an event that was going to launch another arm of government's push against illegal mining, and they died. And when they died, I remember, a lot of people said, we should take advantage. Of course, it was tragic, but do not let your death be in vain. The biggest monument you can erect in your honor is to win the war.
Yeah.
And I thought it should have been a turning point where the aggression and the brutality with which we fight illegal mining would have switched almost instantaneously. And unfortunately, to date, I haven't seen that. I have not seen that aggression, that brutality that we require to deal with illegal mining. And that is why, for me, and the biggest national security threat to date is still illegal mining. It's claimed lives of those who are very dear to the president's heart, including Dramani Mahama. And in fact, 2 cabinet ministers, and a lot of their faces are there on the screen for you to see. And yet, we've still been talking about state of emergency. It is the biggest tragedy beyond the actual loss we suffered on that tragic day.
All right. Sulemana.
Well, what can I say, apart from what Evans has said? And I have said it repeatedly that I think they were going to launch a cooperative mining scheme in Obuasi. And that was touted as the scheme to ensure that people who were into Galamsey would not be deprived of their livelihood, that the processes of mining would be regularized in such a way that people can be brought together to mine in a way that is sustainable. And I'm quite surprised that after their death, I haven't even heard of it again. Yep. What has happened to the cooperative mining?
Suleiman, I'm sorry I have to cut you and go to Samson just to correct your microphone. The sound is bad. Forgive me.
Oh, okay.
Samson.
Right. This was very painful, and I think the pain is still there. For some of us who were very close to some of them, particularly Omani and Murtala, these are friends. I was in uni with them, so we did a lot of things together over a period. And after school, we still kept contact. And I checked my WhatsApp, for example, my last and I agree with them that I don't see that we have done what we ought to do on the back of what they suffered. Because if I see and hear the stories, read about the stories of what Galamsey is still doing, that the president literally refused to declare a state of emergency. The president had to be compelled to ensure that that obnoxious LI was repealed, and a couple of unfortunate comments, about what we're raking from the gold that we were benefiting ourselves and all of those. I think a lot can be done in that regard. And for as long as Galamsey is still devastating our water bodies and everything else, I think we haven't done enough. I was looking for some action that we will always refer to as a result of their death.
Right.
That has not happened.
Suleiman, just 30 seconds to at least land on the points that you started.
Well, I would conclude by saying that until the Galamsey fight is won, our environment restored, water bodies restored, I don't think that we would have done justice to these gallant citizens of ours who perished in a very painful way. And so we look forward to the government doing something so that, the right thing, so that at least we cannot have them back, but we would always remember that it took the loss of the lives of our gallant citizens for us to restore our ecosystem to what it should be, to make our water bodies clean and to ensure that the lives of people who would have, suffered from mercury poisoning and others would be saved. It's really tragic. And some of us were close to. Omani was such a very great guy. Mutala, a very humble, honest person. But well, God knows why.
Oh,
I had come under threat, and Omani was personally involved in ensuring my security and my family.
Oh.
And so, it gets really personal.
I can understand.
It gets really personal.
Could you just some 30 seconds too?
Yeah, I said earlier that the greatest enemy of Ghana is Ghanaians, and everybody's contribution will prove it. And there you go. Look, Professor Kwesi said something on the day of the tragedy when Evans and myself were here in the studio talking through the terrible events of the day. He said that there is no tragedy big enough to teach Ghanaians a lesson. How sad and true. It doesn't matter how tragic the thing is. We will never learn from it. We will never take... Look, in other parts of the world, somebody's dog goes missing. And by the time they found it, they've learned 100 lessons. And they'll pass laws, name the laws after the dog, to ensure that nobody else's dog gets lost like that ever again. What have we changed? These people died in the service of a cause that is life and death for Ghana. Life and death. Galamsey will kill us.
It's killing us, actually.
Winston.
Yeah. Right? If I may, it will kill us. But after losing some of the greatest minds, I had to watch my friend, Edward Omani Buama, carried in a sack, in a sack on the neck of a poor a cocoa farmer trying to help. After watching that, the nation that I belong to, that he was serving and died in the service of, has learned nothing from it.
I'll just give a few seconds remaining to Winston.
Well, is Ghana worth dying for? I do not think so. I do not think that Ghana is a country worth dying for. Because if these persons died in service of the country, en route to a scheme to deal with illegal mining, and illegal mining is in full force, well, advise yourself.
Evans, quickly, who's your best performing minister?
Hands down, Dr. Keisha Lato-Forsyth.
Okay. Samson, who's your best?
For three reasons.
Presently not thinking about ministers. I'm thinking about some of the young appointees in these institutions like Same Jemfi, Eduje Tamaklo, who are proving me wrong that they could do these jobs the way they are doing. Now the economy is on the back of the gold board.
Right. Sulemana, because it would have been either your best performing minister or institution.
Maybe I think my biggest disappointment has been the Minister for Local Government. I think so far he's proven to be leading a ministry that is completely non-transparent. And that's the ministry that so far has declined a lot of our right to information requests. And
this means the others are performing right for you.
Says it wants to reset, cannot reset with ministers who are not interested in transparency and accountability.
Kojo, best performing?
Best performing finance minister, hands down. First finance minister to actually see our CD appreciate by the end of the year by almost 30%. Yep. Inflation all the way down from double to single digits. These are palpable achievements. Yep. Congratulations to you. Worst minister. Sorry?
Go on.
Worst minister? I wasn't asking whether you can do that.
Worst minister, health minister. Nobody in the sector likes him. He's a nice person, but I don't think he's doing a good job.
I'd say that the best performing minister, I think Katia Lato-Forsyth has done a great job, but he's been complimented by the governor of the Bank of Ghana. So if we're going to talk about, all the achievements, we cannot take the governor of the Bank of Ghana out. So Dr. Johnson Esiama has also done a great job. So for me, I'll single out the two.
Who is also a beneficiary of quote-unquote Noli Prosequi.
I will just borrow 1 minute from my director now and probably ask all of you, what lesson has the death of Daddy Lumba taught all of you?
Have fun.
Have a whale.
Have a whale.
Have fun.
Okay.
Treat women with respect.
Okay.
I like that one.
You like that one?
I still have fun.
Winston told me to say this, that just have one wife.
Just have
Have one wife, but also have a will. That one is very important.
Yeah, so you see, you added to mine. Yeah.
Well, I remember that my colleague Carlos Caloni was brutally assaulted and detained by national security until today. He hasn't been compensated. It's not how I wanted to end the show, but it's still 30th of December 2025. We still have tomorrow. You never know what's come to me tomorrow. I'm MFA Kosiaditi. This has been Joy News 2025 Review. We just might continue tomorrow on the AM show. Thank you for watching.